Hey, what's going on, movie lovers all over the world? You already know who it is. It's your boy Testify to the Music, aka Mikey Savage 21, bringing you another movie review. And today I'm going to be taking a look at the 2016 film known as Doctor Strange. Now, what I'm going to do with this one is similar to what I did with Don't Breathe and with Suicide Squad and a few other movie reviews. I'm going to get into both spoiler and non-spoiler territory, and the reason I'm getting this up so late is for that reason. In case some of you have seen the movie, or in case some of you have not seen the movie, you can get both my thoughts on both what I thought of the film in a non-spoiler format, and those of you who have seen the film, whether it be on Friday or sometime today, can get my full-on spoiler thoughts on what I thought of the film. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with the non-spoiler likes and dislikes, and then give my score, and then I'm going to have a warning coming up letting you know when I'm getting into spoiler territory. And please come back and check out the other half of the video once you have seen the film. Now, you're probably asking, why didn't I just do two separate videos? I figured it'd be a little easier and a little better on time if I just did both non-spoiler and spoiler together. That way you don't have to try to watch two videos. You can just watch one full video. So with that being said, let's jump straight into the non-spoiler likes and dislikes of Doctor Strange. So the first thing I want to talk about that I like was the visuals. The overall visuals in this film were absolutely amazing, and I recommend you see this in IMAX 3D. I know it's expensive, especially if you go to the AMC or the AMC Prime or the Dolby Atmos. Some of these theaters, they are a little expensive when it comes to the IMAX 3D, but if you really want to get the full broad scope of what they're doing in this film, you definitely need to check it out. And one of the things that I want to debunk is a lot of people seem to keep comparing this film to Inception. I want to say there are two different films, definitely with tone and with visuals. You could see how people could make the comparisons a little bit, but this film is like in a whole brand new level of visuals. When you're warping reality and you have people like Doctor Strange or Mads Mikkelsen's character, or even the Ancient One played by Tilda Swinton, when you have these guys breaking these dimensions and putting you in these different little visual atmospheres, it is way different on the level and scope that we go through. Because even at one point, he even asked the Ancient One, am I on LSD? Because it is that much of a trip. And I gotta say, I did feel like I was on this level of high, especially towards the middle climax of the film, when it really started to get into some heavy visuals. So I have to give them an A++ on their visuals. They did a fantastic job here. So yeah, check that out in IMAX 3D. Now, the next like I want to get to is the character journey of Stephen Strange, or Doctor Strange. In the beginning, we get to see how he is a bit of an arrogant prick, how he isn't so nice, how he's mainly just doing this for himself and for the glory. He's not necessarily in it to save people, but in it to save people so it makes him look good. And it just shows how he is an arrogant prick and how he's only in it for himself. And then when you get to the actual car scene of where he hurts himself, and this is not a spoiler because this was in the trailer, and for most of you who have read your comic book lore, you know that's exactly how he loses his hands. And this also goes into the visuals as well, because when you see the car flipping off the road and you see it take all its twists and turns and how he inevitably loses his hands, that is also a stunning visual as well. But it also had an aspect of horror to it, which again, the director Scott Derrickson is mostly known for doing horror type things. So I think they definitely hired the right director for this. But then we see him go to the Ancient One, we see him go to this temple, and we see him start to learn. And then he meets up again later on with some of the other characters he had interacted with before he went off on his journey, and you can see the change in him. So again, I gotta commend the director and everybody on this for what they were doing, again, with the visuals and with the journey of Stephen Strange. But yeah, when you see the film, you can clearly tell this guy is an arrogant prick. He is all about himself. But then it's simply, he is humbled by the end of the film, to the point where he's even willing to risk his own life to save the Earth against a threat that could cause cataclysmic damage to both the Earth and to the universe. So again, the character journey of Stephen Strange, or Doctor Strange as you want to say, essentially you have the same kind of journey journey that you had with Tony Stark in the first Iron Man. But at the same time, there's still a little bit different parallels, because Tony Stark, in his own right, wasn't necessarily a bad guy to begin with. He did care about people. He was just more so not showing it as much, whereas opposed to Stephen Strange was definitely all about himself, and it definitely showed in how he treated his co-workers and people that he interacted with. I mean, it even got to one point where Rachel McAdams' character and him were having this bit of back and forth, where he had essentially lost his hand and had gone through all these procedures to try to get the nerves back working in his hand, and here you just see him tear her down. Literally, you see him tear her down piece by piece, and it literally breaks your heart seeing this character, which leads me into my next point of which I liked, which is the character interactions. I love Benedict Cumberbatch's interactions with Chiwetel Ejiofor. I like Benedict Wong. I like what he's doing here. As a character of Wong. Mads Mikkelsen is a fantastic villain. I like Tilda Swinton's Ancient One, and then Rachel McAdams also does a fantastic job as well. And so essentially what you have here is you have all these characters in this film, not as many as you had in Captain America Civil War, but a good handful of characters, and the interaction that they all have with each other, including the villain, is really great here, and it's actually pushed to the forefront, and it's something that I really like. Especially Benedict Cumberbatch's back and forth between Tilda Swinton. The way that he would come in with this resonant of like, oh, I don't believe in the mystic, magical arts and chakras and all that stuff. I don't believe in all of that. And then the way that Tilda Swinton is just simply able to knock him into the astral plane and just kind of really open up his mind. Overall, I like what he did with Chiwetel Ejiofor's character of Baron Mordo, or Mordo's character. I like what he was able to do with him. Essentially, they ended up having like that brother relationship where he was essentially teaching him how to fight. And I gotta say, I love Cumberbatch's back and forth with Wong. What he did here with Wong was so funny. It even got to a point, and this is not a spoiler, where he was making all these cracks and all these little jokes, but he just could not seem to get Wong to laugh at all. So I like how Wong portrayed that character. In the comic books, they portray him more of his assistant. In this one, it's more of a mentor role, like same thing with Mordo's character and with Tilda Swinton's character, the Ancient One, as well. So again, the character interactions here are fantastic. Even Benedict Cumberbatch's overall relationship with Rachel McAdams' character was fantastic. I wish I could have seen a little bit more of that, but again, it is definitely a plus here. Now, speaking of character interactions, this leads me to the villain, which was played by Mads Mikkelsen. And I gotta say, I actually really did enjoy his character. I enjoyed what he was going for. I enjoyed what he was doing. And most of you guys know Mads Mikkelsen from Hannibal. He's also in the upcoming Star Wars Rogue One film that's coming out, as well as other number of films. And I gotta say, I loved his back and forth with Benedict Cumberbatch as well. Again, it was on the forefront, and I like the villain. I like his setup. I like where he came from. I like how it didn't take us long to essentially get to what he's trying to do. He was a great villain. Gotta give him A+. Now, I can't go into too much detail about the villain because then I'll be getting into spoiler territory, unfortunately. So I'll just pretty much leave it at that. And the last like that I had was the usage of comedy. I know at one point they had brought in the writers from the Community, Dan Harmon, to come in here and add a little bit of a comedic flavor to it. And I gotta say, it was fantastic. Dan Harmon is still continuing to be a fantastic comedic writer, and he's one of the best parts about Rick and Morty, and he just came in here and just added comedy. Now, there were some scenes where you could tell where they were trying a little too hard, but again, for the most part, all of the jokes landed well. And I'm glad it had a bit of a comedic tone to it, because I could see where this film could get really dark, and it does get really dark at one point, especially when you get to the ending, or the third act, as you would say, of the film. So going over the likes again, I like the visuals. I like the character journey of Stephen Strange, or Doctor Strange. I like the character interactions between the main character, Doctor Strange, and his character interactions with Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, with the Ancient One. I like his back and forth with her. I like his back and forth with Wong. And I like his relationship with Rachel McAdams' character as well. The villain, I thought the villain was really good. Again, Marvel has a problem with fleshing out their villains as opposed to Loki. But I think they kind of fleshed him out for the most part. I did have a few little bit of negatives with him, but I'll get into that when I get to my dislikes. And I like the uses of comedy here. Dan Harmon was a plus on this film. I'm so glad that they brought him in to add in some of these lines because it really helped out with the scope of the film. So getting into my negatives, I only have two for my non-spoiler review, and that would be the post-credit scene. I really like the post-credit scene, and yes, there is a mid-credit and a post-credit scene. Make sure you stay for both of those because those are very crucial leading into the next couple of films. And so I didn't like the post-credit scene. Again, I won't get into too much detail about it, but I felt like it wasn't warranted, and I kind of felt like I would have needed a little bit more explanation. And the last dislike I had was the villain's motives. Now, while I thought the villain, Mads Mikkelsen, who played the character of Caecilius, while I thought he was a cool-looking villain, they didn't really explain his motives. Even from the beginning when you're first introduced to him, they don't explain his motives other than he wants the power to essentially reach out to this different dimension that's beyond. There's another dimension that he is looking to get to, and he's essentially trying to strive for immortality in a sense. But they really don't do a good job of explaining his motives or explaining how he was able to eventually acquire the power that he needed to become a serious threat. Now, with that being said, guys, that's going to lead to my score, and we're about to get ready to jump into the spoilers as well. So for my score, I'm giving this a solid 9 out of 10. It is definitely one of my, in the top 10 films of Marvel. Again, the Marvel is continuing to show that they are a powerhouse, and they know exactly what they're doing with their Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love how everything is connected together, and you can tell exactly where this film fits in and where exactly it fits in a time placement, plus the callbacks to the other mentions of like the Avengers films and the different individual standalone films was great. So again, I'm giving this film a 9 out of 10. I recommend you check it out in IMAX 3D so you can get the full scope of the visuals and everything that Scott Derrickson did in here in this film. But with that being said, guys, this is your only warning. We're about to jump into spoiler territories, and I'm going to do the same format as last time, do the likes and then do the dislikes. But this time I'll go more in depth about why I like something or why I didn't like something. So 3, 2, 1, spoilers are around. All right. Dormammu's in this film. Yes, I thought I'd go ahead and start off with that. Dormammu is in this film, and he is actually in my dislikes, which I'll get to in just a few minutes. So again, going into the visuals, again, the visual of how he is first introduced to the Ancient One and how she essentially knocks him into this astral plane and essentially takes his mind on this journey, this trip, to the point where she takes him all the way to the freezing cold, and you had to figure out how to open up the portals, and then the portals and how they led to other different worlds. You had one portal inside the Sanctorum for New York that led to the desert, that led to the rainforest, led to these different places, and then you have these mind trips that you are taking on. It is just overall just cool. The effects here are overall cool, and the fact that it was an IMAX 3D, you can tell that this was definitely made for an IMAX 3D showing, because when you go on these trips with Stephen Strange, you essentially are looking through his eyes and are on this journey as well. So the visuals here, outstanding. And again, I see how people can make comparisons to the other properties like we've had like with Inception, but this takes that and makes it on a brand new level. Visually, this is one of the best looking films that Marvel has put out so far, and again, it was an introduction to the mystical and magical realm, these other realms that we are essentially going to get to later on in these other films dealing with Thanos and the other Infinity Stones. Now again, the character journey of Stephen Strange, he was a bit of an arrogant prick, and that's just an understatement. He was all about himself, but when he meets the Ancient One, he's still all about himself. But she tells him, hey, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about other people. There are other people living on this earth than you. It can't be all about you. But then later on, he realizes that there is more things that I could do with my gift of what I've learned from the Ancient One and from Mondu and from Wong, these different interactions I've had, I can do something, I can be somebody, because there are other ways to help people than besides being a doctor. So again, fantastic character journey here. He was humbled by the end of this film, and I bought it. I like how they spent a lot of time with Stephen Strange and how we essentially got to witness his transformation into who we know Doctor Strange is in the comic books. Now again, he still has a bit of that comedic arrogance to him, but it's more of a humbled comedic arrogance though. So the character interactions, getting a little bit in depth, I liked how you could tell that Baron Mordo, you can just tell how he essentially really respected Tilda Swinton's Ancient One character. You can tell how he really respected her, he filled her, he did everything that she told him to, and then when it gets to the point where it's revealed at the end that she's been telling him that you shouldn't use Dormammu's dark magic, you shouldn't tap into this dark dimension, and then essentially he finds out from Doctor Strange, and then eventually from her as well when she comes to fight Mads Mikkelsen's character of Caecilius, and you see the mark on her head and see how she essentially has been keeping herself for all this time by tapping into the dark dimension, and you feel the hurt and the anguish and the pain in this character's eyes. It's just really cool. It's really cool, and it is really awesome to see this interaction. And then I love Wong's interactions with Doctor Strange, even to the point at the end of the film where he's been trying to make him laugh the entire film, and he finally makes somewhat of a funny joke, and then Wong just like absolutely loses it. Now, at first I was like, okay, this seems kind of forced, but then, you know, looking at Wong's character and how he was portrayed, it's okay. It's okay. I understood it. You know, again, no harm, no foul. And then the character interaction of Rachel McAdams' character with Benedict Cumberbatch, and how you could tell she truly cared about him. And one of the things that I gotta say that I like, and you jump in the comment section and say if you like this as well, I liked at the end when they were saying their goodbyes, they didn't kiss on the lips, because I felt like, okay, this hasn't been warranted for a kiss on the lip. We could tell that there's obviously an attraction and a spark there, but we have not spent enough time with them to see where this is going to lead to. So I just like how essentially she gives him a kiss on the cheek, they say goodbye, he opens up the portal and disappears. Now, later on, if we get a Doctor Strange 2, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get one, especially the way it's tracking right now in the box office. When we inevitably get that sequel, if they then want to expound upon that relationship and then they have the big kiss, I'm fine with that. I'm glad how they didn't have it in this film. They can save it for another film. But I love the interaction between him and Rachel McAdams' character. You could show that even when he was an arrogant prick, she still cared about him. So again, the character interactions here were fantastic. Scott Derrickson did a fantastic job here. Again, this was perfect casting all around. Now again, getting to the villain. I like the villain. I like Caecilius. I like what he was going for. I liked how he was connected to Dormammu, and essentially I could see where they were going for here. But really, again, and this again is going to lead into my dislike, which again is pretty much the same as the ones that I had in my non-spoiler review. I didn't think his motives were all the way there. It seemed like he kind of figured out the spell too quick. Now, even to the point where, you know, Doctor Strange, he might be this reading prodigy and he's a doctor and he's used to, you know, having a photographic memory and everything. It seemed like he learned the spell a little bit too quick. Same thing with Doctor Strange when he was learning how to turn back time. Essentially, it seemed like it was a little too quick. So the villain's motives here weren't completely laid out. We knew that he wanted immortality, and we knew that he wanted to, you know, essentially type into the dark dimension and get his power from Dormammu. But why? Why did he want to do that? Why was he so angry with the Ancient One? Why was he so angry with the world? What exactly happened, essentially? Because they make little brief references to it and talk about it a little bit, but they don't really go in detail. And I wish they would have spent a little bit extra few minutes, maybe a few scenes of a montage of him training to harness the dark dimension that leads to Dormammu, or even would have shown at least a few more scenes of explaining his relationship with Baron Mordo and how he became the person that he is and how he disliked and despises the Ancient One. And I'd like to see where he came from. And again, I know that the film was relatively short, not too long, and it focused mainly on Doctor Strange. I commend him for doing that. But I would have liked to got a little bit more character motivation from the villain and what made him do what he did. And this again leads into the last dislike that I really had, and again it's a minor nitpick, is the post-credit scene. Now this kind of also ties back to the villain's motives. Now in the post-credit scene, we see that the man who, tells Stephen Strange essentially about how he was able to walk again and sends him to the temple. We see him in a garage working on something, and Baron Mordo just kind of pops out of nowhere, and he can tell that, okay, I'm sensing a bit of malice from this guy, and he essentially turns, I guess, quote unquote, evil in a sense, and kills a guy and steals his magic. Now, and he becomes a little bit more aggressive. Now, the aggression I did see when he was training Doctor Strange, you saw the aggression in him, but I want to know what made him turn so quickly. Was there like a bit of a time skip, or did this immediately happen afterwards? And again, I know he's one of those guys that likes to do everything by the rules, so maybe he figured, okay, the Ancient One lied to me, and then now Doctor Strange has, broken, the rules with time traveling and everything. So he's like, I'm just gonna, do me, and I'm essentially gonna take out all the people who are using masses, take out all the sorcerers, so I'm the only one, and then create my own set of rules that everyone has to follow. I don't know, I would have liked a little bit more of that, because again, I liked the post-credit scene. It was cool, and it was warranted, more so than like what happened with Sinestro in the Green Lantern film, where all of a sudden we see him put on the yellow ring, and oh no, I'm evil now, I have the yellow power ring. There was no hint to him turning evil at all. At least in this, you could see him slowly getting broken down, but still, I would have liked them to spend a little bit more time explaining that as well. But with that being said, guys, again, I'm going to give my score. Again, I'm giving this film a 9 out of a 10. I overall liked the film. I thought it was a fantastic film, one of Marvel's best films. Definitely in my top 10 Marvel films. And I definitely plan to check this out again. And again, I recommend you see this in IMAX 3D. I cannot stress this enough. Pay the extra money and just see it in IMAX 3D. Look, I wear glasses and I don't like wearing 3D glasses. But last night, I put on my 3D glasses on top of my glasses, and I enjoyed the trip that they took me on. Again, you're not going to be able to get the full aspect of the visuals and what Scott Derrickson was going for here, or what the Ancient One or what Doctor Strange and them are doing with bending reality. You're not going to get the full scope of it unless you check it out in IMAX 3D. But with that being said, guys, this is going to end the spoilers review. Again, talking to the ones who stayed from the non-spoilers review and the ones who are really tuning into the spoilers review. What did you think of Doctor Strange? Have you seen the film? Do you plan to go check it out in theaters? If so, please let me know down in the comment section below. Again, let's keep it spoiler free for the most part. If you want to drop some spoilers, please make sure you use the accurate labels so that everybody who hasn't seen the film doesn't get completely spoiled. Thank you again so much for tuning into this video. Make sure you follow me on all the social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at IamTestify. And if you like this video, share it with a friend, give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to this channel for more movie reviews like this, where we go in depth, break down the likes and the dislikes, and the overall arcs that go inside of these films. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a blessed evening. Peace out.